Hi, my name's Graham Thompson. Kelly J. Keane and Britain's paedophile enabler-in-chief Peter Tatchell were on talk radio on the 4th of August, which I'll link to below, debating the issue of transgender. Kelly J. Keane was a safe pair of hands as always. What I love about Kelly J. Keane is she does not budge an inch. She was asked the question that she's always asked, but Kelly, if Laurel identifies as a woman, why can't you call her she? And me being the muppet that I am, when I hear her ask those questions, I'm always thinking to myself, "Oh, yes, it is a bit harsh. I mean, but maybe it would be." But she always, no hesitation, just straight back. I will not call a bloke a woman. No words to that effect. And then she follows up with a very good, pithy one-line explanation as to why not. Listen to it on the link. And then I think, oh yeah, that's right, that's right. Why didn't I think of that? Because I'm a numpty and she's not, and that's why she does interviews, and thankfully I don't. Uh, Peter Tatchell. Peter Tatchell was an absolute masterclass of darkness masquerading as light. He's an emissary of Satan, but nevertheless, you can always appreciate great art. And even though he's a great artist of evil, you can always learn from a great artist, even one as depraved as Mr. Tatchell. Uh, some months ago, Kelly J. Keane brought out a flurry of videos in which he just told it like it is about the safeguarding danger of LGBT relationships education in schools for children as young as 5 and under. And this is a clip from one of those videos.
If a child can consent to having their body eradicated of sexual function, if they can consent to change the development of their genitals and their brain, and they don't go through puberty, if we say they have consent to that, why not consent to having sex with adults? Peter Tatchell said in a letter when it talked about having sex with children, he put kind of a disclaimer where it says, while it might be impossible to condone about adult child sexual relationships, it can bring great joy to the kids involved. And so he talked about some of his friends who are 12. This man is he's a patron of Educate and Celebrate, which is one of the many organizations going into British schools. That's who he is. If we think for a moment that he's the only man like that who's got anything to do with these policies going into schools, then we're all we deserve to sacrifice our children at the altar of the LGBT cover for paedophiles. Once you talk about paedophilia in the same breath as LGBT, everyone talks about how gay men were accused of paedophilia. Well, there is a National Association of Men Who Love Boys in America, which is literally that. It's gay men who like having children as boyfriends. You know, it's not saying all men who are gay are paedophiles at all, but damn, if I was a gay man right now, I'd want to really make clear disassociations with these men.
And then after that flurry of videos, she came out with this.
That enabled them to have access and go through safeguarding and just be unquestioned. And I would argue right now that's where we're finding our LGBT. And we know that it isn't LGB because we didn't really have this issue until this massive, great big T came along and started really messing. So straight white men, basically, since straight white men joined the LGBT rainbow, that's what's happened to the rainbow. It's basically become a great big cesspit.
Spot the contradiction. When I pointed out to her in her comments her vault face, albeit in a somewhat intemperate manner on my part, this is how she responded. You're a very sensitive man who is delivering aggression here. This is a worrying combination. Perhaps you don't understand how you come across, but my instincts tell me that you, personally you, are not someone that I would feel comfortable or safe around. If she's left feminism, feminism has not left her. If you're going to view life through an ideological prism, you're going to get a distorted view of it, and you're going to write twisted things like that. But one cannot hold it against her too much, as she is easily the best voice out there, speaking in defence of women's spaces against autogynephiles who get their rocks off from dressing up as women and invading them. And a little sidebar on this video. A couple of days ago, I was Googling about, I came across a very interesting article by a lady in the Morning Star, of all places, who monitors maps on Twitter. And for those who don't understand what a map is on Twitter, MAP stands for minor attracted person, a nonce, a paedophile. And they often also call themselves NO maps, non-offending maps, and we should of course take their words for it. And pardon me, I'll link to that article. It's a good article to read. It was about how she gets harassed by these maps who take full advantage of Twitter's very paedophile friendly terms of service, and they got her account deleted. The Safe Schools Association, I'm going to link to what they wrote on that article as well. Very interesting reading as well. They said that in the Twitter map accounts they've looked at, most of them have transgender symbols on. I'm sure there's a perfectly reasonable explanation for that. Now, in Kelly J. Keen's transgender debate with Mr. Tatchell, I was hoping, well actually I'm lying a bit, it only occurred to me after the debate, which show how easy it is to slip one's mind. I was hoping that what she would bring up with Mr. Tatchell would be, if you're okay with children as young as 3 giving consent to changing their sex, what else are you okay with children giving consent to? But it might have cropped up because I think that the version Talk Radio have put out is actually cut. So it may have come up, but you know, certainly nothing against Kelly J. Keen if she didn't bring that point up. It's a live interview, and you know, even people who are the best at it, like ourselves, can fail to bring those points up. Or maybe the reason it wasn't brought up is because she was told by Talk Radio not to do so. Now, all kudos to Talk Radio for having someone on, Kelly J. Keen, who's the most banned woman on the internet, and in spite of the great box office she is for TV, doesn't get invited back to TV when Peter Tatchell, Britain's paedophile enabler-in-chief, does. It may have been because Talk Radio told her not to stray into that territory with Mr. Tatchell. And the point I would simply make, I made it kind of in my last video about GB News canonising Peter Tatchell. In any civilised society, Mr. Tatchell would be a pariah. He wouldn't be on anywhere. But if he was, any decent civilised broadcaster would only have him on if they held his feet to the flame about his paedophile enabling, to put it at its most bare minimum. But they never do. Now, GB News and Talk Radio may say, well, the thing is, if we do that, then we'll lose our YouTube channel. So what? If you're gonna lose your YouTube channel by holding his feet to the flame like they so much should be, then just don't have him on. Any broadcaster that has Mr. Peter Tatchell on without holding his feet to the flame on his paedophile apologia is complicit with paedophilia. But even though Kelly J. Keane didn't apparently stray into that territory and ask him that question, we already know what Mr. Tatchell's answer is. This is Mr. Tatchell's answer. Bit of noisy traffic there. This is Mr. Peter Tatchell's answer in a little piece he wrote as part of a paedophile anthology put together by an ex-vice chairman of PAE, the Paedophile Information Exchange. I'll read it to you. Certainly, in the realm of sexual ages of consent, we need to ask whether the law has any legitimate role to play in criminalising consenting, victimless sexual activity. As for protecting the young, the main protection they need, as do adults, is legal protection against forced, involuntary sexual acts, which is afforded by the laws covering rape and sexual assault. So what he's saying is that the same laws that apply to adults on sex should apply to children. That is slam dunk. No matter what flim-flam he comes out with it to get away with it, that is slam dunk, calling for abolition of the age of consent. As I said, Mr. Tatchell tries to pull the wool over people's eyes with all sorts of flim-flam about that. He's never said, "Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm disgusted with myself. How can I possibly think that?" No, he flim-flams on it. So to this day, he is campaigning for abolition of the age of consent. Everything he does is to that end, most especially in having been one of the key figures pushing for compulsory LGBT education in schools for children as young as 5 years old and under. The purpose behind that could not be more obvious. The other main protagonists behind it, of course, being no outsiders. From the outset, they are as close to directly being paedophile as can possibly be. I'll link to that as well. And Stonewall. What was Stonewall formed for? Stonewall were formed in 1989 to repeal Clause 28. What did Clause 28 do? Clause 28 stopped grown men having access to little boys in schools to force them to accept getting buggered is normal. Any homosexuals who come together to repeal a law like that only have themselves to blame if they're regarded as paedophiles. And the key founder of Stonewall, a certain Mr. Peter Ashman, in whose Islington flat the first meetings of Stonewall were held, he is on record, again in one of the links I'm sharing below, he is on record of condoning paedophilia in 1975. So, how am I going to end this video? I watch too much Michael Francis. That's always how he ends his videos, asking how he's going to end them. How am I going to end this video? Well, as with the GB News video, if you've seen it, regardless of how utterly useless I'm sure I will be, I will debate Mr. Peter Tatchell on whether we should bring back Clause 28. So how about it, Talk Radio? I've heard nothing back from GB News. Will I hear back from you? Are you going to hold a debate for Mr. Tatchell's feet to be held to the flame on his pure paedophile apologia? Or are you going to carry on having him on, treating him like he's some kind of saint and being complicit with the paedophile agenda that he is crypto pushing? That's my offer.